Good morning to you. Hope you're off to a good start today. It's a beautiful day where I'm at. I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever been approached by a dog whose behavior, probably pretty sketchy, slinking towards you, step at a time, maybe going backwards a little bit, and it made you just want to ask that dog a question? Hey, if I've got you so concerned, why are you bothering to come over here? That behavior is known as predatory inspection behavior. And what makes it so peculiar is that that's a behavior that is unique to prey animals. They go towards predators. They actually advance towards something that could be possibly fatal to gain information. And yet the last time I looked, our dogs are still classified as Canis lupus familiaris, meaning wolf gray domesticated. So why would an animal who's still classified as a social predator evoke prey behavior, such as predatory inspection type behavior? Well, one of the first reasons is that it's unpredictable when you come up to a predator. Even if you're a prey animal, predators can be extremely unpredictable. It depends on how you catch them on that given day. Do they have a full stomach? If they are, they're probably not interested in you. On other days, they're hunting you. And sometimes you want to find out, are you hunting the other guy over there, or are you hunting me? It's a little bit of a head scratcher, still is. We don't really, when I say we, that's biologists, ethologists, really don't understand why juveniles, is mostly associated with younger animals, why they approach something that could have fatal consequences. And we know that they do it to gather information about that predator. How fast is it? Is that thing actually interested in me, like I just mentioned? They want to know, when does it hunt, day or night? It's intel gathering. And yet it can have serious consequences, even leading to some mortality for a lot of these dogs, and prey animals. Well, this is well documented. In fact, it's sometimes known as different names: approach behavior, investigative behavior, and also predatory, like I mentioned, inspection behavior. It's well documented. You see it with gazelles. You'll see it with other animals that are hunted by lions, cheetahs. You'll see it with young elk, young deer. They'll actually approach, even though the adult's going, learn from me, don't approach. And they do so anyway. And this is characterized by dogs that kind of slink up to you. They'll start to approach, and then they'll pause, and then they may back up, and then approach a little bit more, and they're real stiff sometimes, and then they'll run back. Yeah, this is prey inspection behavior. And in my last video, I talked about dogs who attack without warning. Another very peculiar manifestation of the domestication process, and how the use of aggression and how we respond to fear. Again, wild animals that live in a group, if they are using intra-group control and that aggression is to control another member of their group, they don't attack without warning. And they also don't walk up and inspect them like they do a predator. But yet, here we go, our dogs do that. So why do they do it? Why do dogs act like prey? How did that come about? Well, in short, whenever you allow suboptimal genes to continue to reproduce over and over again, meaning you're allowing, instead of producers to mate, you're allowing scroungers to mate. And you allow a weaker, more fearful animal in your attempt to make it tamer and more tamer, or to make an animal look a certain way, or to shrink its size. If you do this enough, you will start to cleave from those chromosomes, those things that make it more of a predator and make it more like prey. In mammals, developing embryos, they're affected by their mother's diet, by their physiology, and by her social status. And if your dog's social status, the breeding dog, especially the mother, if she's fearful, if she's anxious, if she's wary of unfamiliar people, unfamiliar animals, then that social status can then cause great changes in gene activation in her developing embryos, which have shown to have lifelong consequences in regard to the young mammals' physiology and their behavior. So one leads to the other. And again, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. And this is how we arrived at an animal with fang and claw who shares all of its mitochondrial DNA but 0.2% with a predator, and yet you act like the very prey that you would normally stalk. Okay, so what does it look like? Again, I kind of mentioned it just a little bit earlier. It can be a dog that approaches you and then suddenly becomes stationary, freezes. Immobility is one of the tactics used by many prey animals and also by some predators when they're facing another predator at that moment. It's very rare, but they will freeze because if I become immobile, you may not detect my presence. So many predators, their eyes have more rods than cones designed to see movement in low light, even at a great distance. Take that along with search image formation, meaning a deer can tell the difference, a wolf can tell the difference between a deer's antlers sticking out from behind a tree at 100 yards versus those being branches. So you add all that together, freezing is a great strategy. So prey animals will oftentimes freeze whenever they find themselves in the presence of a predator. They'll also alternate going to and from, kind of walk up and go, oh, I'm maybe not so sure. Walk up a little bit closer, maybe not so sure. Back and forth and back and forth. It can also rejoin any other members. So again, if this dog has human members of the family and you walk into the home, for example, then the dog may retreat back to its owner or to other members of its group, other conspecifics, if it happens to be a wild animal. And the scary part is that this may culminate in an attack situation, especially if the animal can't flee. Now, the number one response will always be to flee. That is the one that's most documented, that once you realize, you go, oh, okay, you are a predator, and I think you're very interested in me. I'm out of here. And they take off. But when you're within the confines of a home, it's kind of like a zoo. You have limited flee options. You can back up a little ways, but you can't head to the next county. And because of that, animals will often attack, and sometimes without warning, like I mentioned in the previous video, during those situations. So that's the dangerous thing with this peculiar behavior. It's happened to me. I've had animals approach me very sketchy like this. Was decades ago when I was a little younger and dumber. And I did like everyone else. I stuck my hand out there, let the animal inspect my hand, and sure enough, chomp, right then and there, right on my hand. And I got all the scar tissue on both of my hands. Took me a little bit, but I finally learned, pain motivates, and I finally got my act together, and I no longer do that. And we'll talk about you not learning the way I did in just a second. Okay, so what to do? What to do about this thing? Because it's there. It's there. You know what I'm talking about. If you own dogs or you've been to other places, dog parks, or even into the lobby of a dog resort or veterinary hospital or into someone else's home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's there. So again, I don't need to prove that. But here's what to do. First of all, if you own a dog that evokes prey behavior, predatory inspection behavior, first things first, do not allow the dog to inspect. Not up close. In other words, no greeting. No greeting. You can do your inspection from afar. That's right. Over there. Yeah, you bet. In fact, your dog will actually feel better about that because distance is safety. The further you're away from a predator, the safer you are. So it allows you to spend a couple extra seconds, a little bit more relaxed, maybe enhanced cognition, not panicking cognition, to really study this possible predator. And again, it can come in the form of an unfamiliar person or an unfamiliar dog or a combination thereof. That's when you want to use some of that training called stay or place or lay down, but at a distance. You've heard me say it many times. I'm not a huge fan of dogs greeting people at the door. It's okay to go to the door with your dog under absolute control. You look out your door, you crack it open just a wee bit so you can peek outside, and you determine, is that friend or foe? If that's friend, someone I'm going to invite into my home, or maybe a service worker that's coming in, then at that moment, give me 1 second, over here, stay, or go to place. Allow these people to come in and go, it's a nice dog you have over there. Yeah, your dog will appreciate it and you'll appreciate it as well. When it comes to greeting at the door, that is always going to be an initial success or total failure proposition. And if your dog feels sometimes like it's the prey and not the predator, well, forget predatory inspection. You're right up on that darn thing, which means that's how these culminate into attacks. It's how it culminates into attack. So I said that twice. Remember that. I didn't have the option to inspect, and I darn sure didn't have the option to flee. You're right here. That's where someone goes, back off. Yeah, pop. Right then, right there. Okay, next thing, trust your training. If you're going to go put your dog in that stay or in that place, you trust it. Trust it or don't do it. If you don't trust your dog's training, you don't trust it. You're worried that your dog's going to blow off that place cot, break that down stay, and come over to the people and possibly bite them, then you will be thinking about that when that predator arrives. And because you're thinking about that, you're anxious. And because animals learn from social referencing, meaning they're always monitoring the behavior of their nearest neighbor in their group, especially if that behavior happens to be connected to an animal that seems to have more control, more producer-like qualities, more of a leadership type quality. In other words, if you're anxious, then I'm anxious. I don't realize and have a clue that you're anxious not because of that predator. You're anxious because you're worried that I'm going to get off the place caught. I'm going to break the down stay. I don't know that. I just know that you're anxious. So having more of a simplistic mind, then the animal will erroneously connect the anxiety that you're harboring as the cause of that is the predator. And now, oh, you're worried? I'm worried. Again, it's no different. If I was an expert on snakes and you hired me to get you over your fear of snakes for whatever reason, imagine, we start walking in the yard together, baby back over here in that little green area, and we spy a snake. And I go, oh, you're probably gone. You're probably going to invoke that flea thing. You're out of here. Okay? But on the other hand, if I go, oh, check that out, baby. That's a cool snake. And this is a fun one. And I pick it up and say, here, you want to hold it? Well, you may not hold it, but you probably won't flee. Again, social referencing. So if you don't trust your training, that's a good time to just put your dog up. Put your dog up. Nothing beneficial is going to be gained from an animal terrified at a distance away from a perceived predator. And especially if they get to act on that, they get to walk over there and suddenly take a nip. And someone goes, oh my God, I heard, and everyone's in an uproar. That's horrible. There are times to remove your dog from the situation, and that is one of those times. So either trust your training or put the dog up. Okay, next thing. For you, how do you conduct yourself? You walk into a home. You're at a dog park, and a dog walks up to you showing all the behaviors. You're observing that approach and then back, and that approach and then back, and stiff-legged, staring, crouching, slinking. Ooh, you observe that. Okay, first things first, as soon as you observe that, quit observing that. Don't even look at that dog. Do not stare at the dog. Trust me, if it's going to bite you, it's going to bite you, so you might as well not even look at it. I remember a good friend of mine, Teddy Ball, he was a pilot. And he was on a check ride, one of his yearly check rides, and the instructor pilot, and they were flying at nighttime. The instructor pilot says to him and poses a scenario and says, hey, Teddy, okay, so here's the deal. We lose power, and the plane starts to descend, and you turn on the landing lights, and all you see are trees in front of you. What are you going to do? And Teddy said, turn off the lights. That's just turn off the darn lights. You're going to hit them anyway. Same thing. Don't stare at the dog. If it's going to bite you, it's going to bite you. But I guarantee you this much. If you stare at the dog, you just increase tenfold the likelihood that the dog could take one of those quick pot shots at you. So don't stare. Next thing, don't touch. I told you already. Don't touch. Leave your hands to yourself. Put your hands in your pocket, leaning like I'm doing right now. Maybe even fold your arms up here just a little bit. Something like that, looking straight ahead. Talk to the person that the dog belongs to. Don't look at the dog. Okay, next thing, don't move quickly. People who know this, people who've seen me for in-person evaluations of dogs that are fearful or aggressive, they notice quickly. I do all of that. I don't look at their dog. If I do, it's a downward, quick little glance while the dog's looking in another direction. And I'm kind of counting respiration, seeing if their eyes are dilated, and a few other physiological effects of the stress response. But mostly, I park myself up on a stool, like Humpty Dumpty up there, and I stare at the owner, and I talk to the owner, and I'm as casual as I can be. And sometimes these dogs are just literally a foot away or two from me going, rawr, rawr, rawr. Oh no, I'm not going to look over there. I'm going to just act like I am not a predator. I'm not interested in you. I have the full stomach, if you know what I mean. Okay, so don't move quickly, because as soon as you hop down off that stool, you go score if you've been watching a game of some sort, and you move real fast, that's when the inspection can be over and action takes place. So don't do that. Okay, know this as a final note. Prey dogs, dogs that act like they're prey, when you're supposed to be a predator, I guarantee you every dog that I've ever experienced and certainly evaluated had abnormally high anxiety. Abnormally high anxiety. It's probably something connected deep in genetics, probably lack of exposure, socialization, all those sort of things. But nevertheless, they have high anxiety. So prey dogs equals anxious dogs. And if you don't think that can have an effect, again, all of this is extremely well documented. They've done studies with mice. They simply introduced the odor of a predator, not the presence of a predator, just the odor. And what that revealed was bad, not good, but the bad changes in the neurological and endocrinological parts of the brain, functions of the brain. It caused increased stress, incredible stress. So it's been proven that non-humans can become extremely anxious and fearful in the presence of a predator. And if this is happening continuously, your prey dog is not able to avoid the presence of predators because it lives in a densely populated human area or dog area, then you might want to think again about some chemical management, some sort of just help. And usually it comes in the form of an antidepressant. It's usually not lifelong in dogs. It's usually to help them get over that juvenile period. Because again, a lot of this prey stuff is usually associated, this predatory inspection, with juveniles. So something to kind of think about there. Just help them out just a little bit. Change their perception. Keep them a little calmer. And they'll live longer and less likelihood that they're going to harm someone or become even more harm to themselves over a period of time. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Another very peculiar situation or manifestation of our good old breeding practices. Here you go. You got dogs attacking without warning, and you also have dogs approaching things that they are fearful of, and they're inspecting you. So again, be careful of that. Know what to do from the video, and be safe out there. Next video, I'm going to talk about when we walk our dogs, why do they go off on other dogs and other people, act aggressively, What governs that? Some people have noticed that it happens at a closer proximity to their home at a certain time of the day, or after a certain event has taken place to their dog. We'll go over all of that, if anything, just to give you a little predictive information so you can choose when is the optimal time to maybe take your dog for a walk, or under what conditions do you purposefully want to take your dog for a walk. So stay tuned for that in the next video. In the rest of the day, be safe. And if you have a dog that's suspecting you, like a possible predator, follow my steps that I have right here. So go ahead and take your little screenshot of it. Little chicken scratch there. All right, guys, have a great day.